Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new video. Hope you are all well. In this video we're going to show you how to service your PlayStation 4 Slim and give it a good spring clean, and we're going to show you how to do it the proper way. So if your PlayStation 4 is overheating and the fan's running really fast, or for example if when you try to insert a games disc it doesn't actually take the games disc in properly and it slips, or when it's ejecting it doesn't eject it properly, this video will show you how to fix those issues and bring your PlayStation 4 Slim back to new.
For your Xbox and PlayStation repairs, visit consoletherapy.com.
So first things first, what we need to do is obviously take the PlayStation 4 Slim apart. Now obviously bear in mind this will invalidate any warranties, so as soon as you open a PlayStation or even an Xbox or any device really, that will invalidate your warranty. Now as you can see on the rear there's actually a warranty label there which we need to remove. So let's get that screw out that's behind that. We need to remove the hard drive, then we need to take the casing off. So first off, with the warranty label, you get yourself a pair of tweezers, just pick to one side of it and then you'll be able to peel this warranty label off like so. Get yourself a Torx screwdriver, and there's just one screw there that needs to come out. Just pop that screw out, put that to one side. We need to remove the hard drive, which is just behind this casing here. So literally that just pops to the side like so, and off that comes. And then we need a crosshead or a Phillips screwdriver to remove this screw here, which holds the hard drive in place. So we take that one out as well. And then we can literally, using this little connector there, just pull out the hard drive like so, and out the hard drive comes. So put that to one side, nice and safe. And then we need to remove the casing. So with the front of the PlayStation 4 Slim facing away from you, if you grab one corner like so, just put your fingers in just in here like this, and then pull up like so, the top piece of the casing comes off, and do the same the opposite side, and that pops off. Then you can pull the top casing away and then flip it over. Now with the rear of the PS4 facing away from you, pretty much the same thing. Get your fingers just behind the casing like so, lift it up and off it will pop, both corners like so. And then this time you're pulling it towards you, right? So there's a lip at the front. So you're lifting it gently this way and then pulling it towards you. So we're lifting up, giving it a wiggle and pulling it this way, and off the bottom case comes. Okay, so then we are on into the insides of the PlayStation. Here we have the power supply. There's some fingerprints on this, so it looks like someone's already been in it. We need to undo all of these screws, right? So as we're taking everything apart, right? We're taking the motherboard out. We need to remove all of these screws here. There's a couple of screws here that we need to remove, which actually hold the chassis together as well. So let's do that now. Now there's a mixture of crosshead screws and Torx screws. These ones here are all crosshead. So we can just pop those off like so. Now some models of the PlayStation Slim only have 2 screws at the back. So if yours has only got 2 screws, just remove those 2 screws. And obviously you won't have these ones here to remove, but you will still have these Torx ones just here that you need to remove as well. So get your Torx bit, undo that all the way. Now these are quite long screws. So we take that off like so, and then just grab this whole silver RF shield. Just make sure your screws are undone all the way, and that will pop off, and you can bring your screws out with you as well. Right, so the screws are still there. Take that off. Again, on this model PS4, there is the Wi-Fi antenna at the back. the newer models of these don't actually have them here. So if you do have your antenna there, just undo that screw and then just slide this metal antenna away towards the back. Just for now, there's a cable there, just be careful, don't pull it too hard. And then just feed the cable through like so, but don't pull it too hard because you do risk breaking the solder joint. Right, for now, we're going to leave that in place, okay? We're going to focus on this screw here, which is a Torx, again, screw. So that one needs to come out. So now what we need to do at this point is flip the PlayStation over, and you'll see quite a few screws that you need to remove, right? So there's a mixture of black and silver screws. Now the black screws that you can see, they're machine screws. So basically they go into metal. The majority of the silver screws you see are self-tapping screws, which means they go into plastic, okay? Now what I like to do, if you're doing this for the first time, this is a good tip, put it that way, right? So I've done this many times, so I can remember where the screws go. If you just get yourself a whiteboard marker, right, so not a permanent marker, but a whiteboard marker, and just put a little dot, right, next to where the black screws go, right, because later on, when you're putting this back together again, all the screw holes look exactly the same. And if you've got this little mark, right, next to all the black screws, when you're putting it back together, it just visually makes it really easy just to find where the black screws go. Okay, so obviously this can rub off later. This is just a whiteboard marker, not a permanent marker. Just mark those as well. Right, so basically now we need to take all of these screws that you can see out. On the back here, so where the hard drive caddy is, there's a couple of little screws here that you need to take off as well, because this metal chassis comes off. So 1, 2, like so. Now, with all of those screws taken out, we can now remove the power supply. Now, the reason we did it around that way is because there's a couple of screws which actually hold the power supply in from this side as well. So let's remove the power supply. Just get your fingers underneath like this. Just give it a bit of a wiggle both sides and it will start to pop off. Be careful of the Wi-Fi antenna. Make sure it feeds through the gap. Lift up, don't yank up the power supply, just lift it up gently because there's a cable here which is connected to the motherboard. And then if you just grab that, it's really hard to show it on camera, but just grab that with your fingers there and then pull it off away from the power supply. Like so, off that pops, right? So that connector is just there, connecting to that cable, just be careful of that. Pop your power supply to one side for a moment. There's a couple of antenna connectors over here which you need to take off as well. So you give yourself a pair of tweezers and then just pop those off. Like so. Then, quick tip, just feed this cable, this power cable, along a little bit to make your life a little bit easier. All right, just going to get some slack there. It's when you remove the motherboard in a minute. Right, so we just fed that cable. It's held on by clips here, right? So what you can essentially do is if you feed the cable through, there's loads of slack there. So when you flip it back over now, when you lift out the motherboard, it'll be easy to lift out, and you'll see why in a minute. Disconnect all of these cables and the other Wi-Fi connector up here. So again, pair of tweezers, just pop that off. Feed that through. Try not to rip the labels because you can use them again. So it's nice and loose. Disconnect the Blu-ray cables. Now these ones just pop off. This one here, the wider one, there's a little tab on the on the connector, a little black tab you need to lift up and then pull the cable out, then just close that tab. And these two down the bottom, they just pull out like so. Power connector for the fan down here. give that a bit of wiggle and pull it off like so. And then, as long as you've got all of the screws out, this metal frame should lift off, like so. Okay, now as you lift it off, just be careful not to lose any of these heat pads or thermal pads, because we do need to make sure they're replaced. And then we are down to the motherboard. So we've got the clamp for the heatsink, so that needs to come off. So it's just 2 screws on that. 1, 2. Put that to one side, and then there's a little bracket underneath that just lifts off as well. And then you should be able to lift off the motherboard. Now, this is where the power cable is, the one that you've loosened off on the other side, right? So hence why I said loosen it off, because watch, when you lift it up, the cable now lifts up, and it's a lot easier then just to give this a bit of a wiggle and then just disconnect it. And then out comes your motherboard. So let's pop that motherboard to one side, and then we can start work here. Right, so with the motherboard out the way, we can start taking this apart a bit further. Now, we need to remove this metal frame piece. There's 4, 5, 6 screws to remove this, and then we need to remove the optical drive. Right, so let's start with the metal frame bit. There's 2 screws up here. So they need to come off. 1 and 2. And then there's 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just around this heatsink area, so they need to come out as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can lift out this metal frame, right? So it just lifts off, literally like so. Bring it up, and off it will pop. Just be careful with the cables, and you don't pull any cables with it. One thing you'll notice is there's a Wi-Fi cable here, which is actually still got its labels on here. So if you just pull that cable through those labels, like so, okay, and then the metal frame will literally just pop off. Now, this is the area of where 99.9% of PlayStations overheat, right? So here is the heatsink, that is the fan, right? Obviously, fan spins, blows cold air, or air at least, through this heatsink, which then cools down the APU through this massive metal plate here. However, if this area is blocked, right, which it is on this one, the flow of the air is obviously not as efficient, right? So it doesn't get as much air flowing through the fan. It then doesn't cool the heatsink as well, and then it doesn't in turn cool the APU as well. So, you know, the vast majority of overheating PlayStation 4 Slims and the actual PlayStation originals, saying that, is due to a build-up of horrible dust all the way along this side of the heatsink. Hence why you've got to take this out to give it a proper clean. Some people try and blow dust from the top side, or air duster from the top side. It just doesn't work, right? So I've got my duster here. And now, as you can see, all that dust is gone. Okay, which is exactly what we need to have the most efficient airflow. Similar with the fan itself, okay, give that a good blast with some dust or air duster. All right, I've got my one to the side again, like so. Now, you'll never get all the dust off the fan. You don't need to, it's fine. As long as there's not massive chunks of dust in there, the fan will still operate. You can see, obviously, the dust build up here. What I normally do is get a bit of isopropyl alcohol, or IPA, get a cloth, give it a good wipe over as well. Again, if this is stained tobacco smoke, you're not going to get it all off. but it's good just to give it a bit of a clean up. Okay, just keeping it nice and clean. Right, and then we need to, as well, get into the optical drive, right? Because there's a couple of runners which I'll show you in a minute, optical drive which get really dusty as well. So, way to do that, we need to take off this front Wi-Fi aerial. We need to take off the power board button, or button board, and take out a few screws. All right, so let's take off the power button first of all. So there's just one screw there. Let's just zoom in a little bit into the area so you can see that better. There we go. All right, so there's one screw there in the middle which I've just taken out. This board then lifts off like so. There's a label there stuck down. So what I normally do is just gently pull the label off as well. And this board and ribbon cable comes away. Same for the Wi-Fi aerial, one screw just there. Lift that off and then it's just tacked to the top of the optical drive. Remove that. And then there's a couple of screws holding the actual optical drive in. 1, 2 and the third one just here. So we take those off, so 1, 2, 3, and then this should lift out like so. We can just put that to one side for a moment. And then easiest way to do this, I flip it over. There are 2 screws. So there's 1 and 2, which takes this top case off. Sometimes they're located in different areas, but you can see they're pretty unique screws, right? So it's a big head on the screw. So, and there's normally just 2 of them, sometimes 3, which hold this top casing. From the back here, lift it up and then pull it up that way. Okay, and then that gives you access to the actual optical drive. Now, obviously, this has got a laser in it, right? Be really careful of this area. Okay, don't touch it at all. Just keep well clear of that. The area we need to focus on is these 2 runners at the front here. Okay, they get clogged up with dust, and over time they start to wear a little bit. And then when you are putting it in your disc into the drive, it spins and doesn't make good contact with the disc, so it doesn't pull it in, hence why it pulls it in really slowly sometimes and judders when it goes in. So what you need to do is remove these and clean them up. Easy way to do that is get your finger, don't use tools, right, because you've got the risk of snapping it, and these just pop off, right? So I'm just literally pulling upwards with my finger, like so, give it a bit of a wiggle, and then off that one pops, like so, just gentle doing that. That comes off, you can remove that white piece then you can use a screwdriver just to put the screwdriver into the side here of this runner, and then just gently lift it up like so. Okay, that side. And then I'm pulling it out this way off of this cog here, okay, like so. Done. Now get some IPA, or again isopropyl alcohol, and spray it on the runner. Get yourself a microfiber cloth and then give them a good clean. All right, so I'm pushing quite hard on these because what I want to do is remove all the grime from them that's built up over the years. So I'm giving them a good wipe over all the way around. So I'm squeezing it quite hard. Same for the other one. Isopropyl alcohol. And giving it a good wipe over. Okay, just remove all the dust. And you kind of need to get it to a point, right, where the actual rubber on this is kind of a tough rubber. It almost feels a little bit rough and a little tiny bit tacky, right, but not too tacky. So you can kind of feel like an incredibly fine sandpaper, right? That's how it should feel. It shouldn't feel completely smooth. If it feels completely smooth, you need to do it again. Okay, these only go back in one way round. You'll know which way round because obviously the wrong way round won't fit. So you connect to this cog first of all, okay, and then Make sure it's nice and clear. Put your finger behind the black plastic bit there and then just give it a squeeze and it will pop in place. Then get the white connector piece, pop it in, only goes around one way, right, like so. Connect those two pieces up, okay, like so. Then feed this side in, first of all, into the hole there, okay, then just drop it. And then again, supporting it with one finger, because you don't want to push too hard, just gently clip it back into place, like so. Done. Then get your air spray again. Sprayed over the whole DVD drive. And then pop back in your top cover. So just make sure there's no loads of excess dust there. Popping this in goes front ways first of all, and then just drop it down. And it should pop into place like so. Obviously, put back in the two screws you took off earlier. And that is pretty much serviced now. So, let's get back our chassis from earlier that we cleaned up. Pop back in the DVD drive, only goes in that way around, or optical drive, only goes that way around. Just drop it into place and it should find the right place. Just get rid of that dust there, which is really annoying. And then pop these three screws back in. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we need to reconnect our Wi-Fi antenna. There's a couple of locating pins which it drops onto that you'll be able to see just at the front there. And obviously it's got to be above the hole for the screw. Pop the screw in, get your power button board. Only goes in one way round, and that's with the little speaker facing upwards like so. Pop it in. Grab your screw. Like so. You can then run your cable through the little holders again, and then stick your label back down again. Okay, that's back in place. Now we are ready for the chassis again, a nice clean chassis. One thing to check, obviously we need to replace the thermal paste. We'll do that in a minute. Just make sure that these thermal pads are still in place as well. There's one there, and then the other two are still on the motherboard on here, just there. All right. So, drop in the metal chassis, like so. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's in place, and then we need to connect those 6 screws back up again. So there was 2 over here and 4 around here. So the thing to watch out for, you might have seen I just did, make sure you don't trap these ribbon cables underneath the metal piece. These need to be on top, so they're not underneath the metal chassis. Okay, and now we need to start replacing the thermal paste. So now we are back ready to reinstall the motherboard. So first of all, we need to clean up the old thermal paste. So a bit of isopropyl. Get an old cloth, give it a wipe over and remove all the old thermal paste. Same on the motherboard. I like to put a bit of isopropyl on the APU and then just run a cotton bud all over it, clearing up the, removing the old thermal paste. And then finish it off with a cloth. That way you can be sure all of the old thermal paste is removed. Now, nice new thermal paste. Pop that onto the APU, like so. And then what we need to do is reinstall the motherboard. So, you know, just make sure that these thermal pads are in place. There should be one there, and there should be 3 along here. They're actually stuck to the ICs on the motherboard. So what I like to do is just pop them on the actual chassis end so they don't fall off as I'm putting the motherboard back in. Like that. Right, so you should have 3 thermal pads there and then a couple up there. So we've got a motherboard with nice fresh thermal paste. Now what we can do is pop the motherboard back in. Easiest way to do this is, first of all, get the power cable that we removed off earlier. Pop that into place now onto the motherboard, and then feed the power cable through this little gap here, right? So put it through like so, take up the slack, keep it loose though, and now feed in the ports to the back of the console like so, making sure that all our aerial and our ribbon cables are out of the way. We can just drop down the motherboard like so, get the power cable for the fan, pop that into place like so, and then drop down the motherboard. Give it a little bit of a squeeze where the thermal paste is. Make sure there's no snagging on any of the cables, so it's not. Connect to our fan power, good. Then we get our clamp for the heatsink, and we pop that back on. Like so, and then just tighten it evenly, don't do one side all the way. Okay, so it's nice and evenly tighted. Don't over tighten those, just do them, you know, tight enough so it stops turning, but don't then try and wrench it even more. Just be careful of that. Okay, then we need the top metal frame piece. Again, see any dust, give it just a bit of a quick clean over. You can use a bit of isopropyl on there, just try and remove any stubborn marks. Making sure, again, that these thermal pads are all in place. Yeah, you might find some stick to these RAM chips on the motherboard. If they do, just make sure they've all got one. And these 2 capacitors here, make sure that they have got a thermal pad aligned to them as well. So just drop the metal top case in place, again making sure you are not snagging the ribbon cables. Drop it into place like so. Okay, and then what we can do is start adding all of our screws. Now, the tip I gave you earlier, you remember, we put a little black mark next to all of the screws that had the black screw in. All right, now your life's a lot easier because when you start attaching the screws, you know exactly where all the black screws go. So let's do that now. Right, so you should have all of your screws, these top screws in, with the exception of this one screw over here, because that's the screw that screws through to the power supply. So we need to install the power supply before that goes in. And then also don't forget these 2 screws at the top here. They were the smaller screws. And then what we can do is connect up all of the cables. I do a quick scan and check as well to make sure I haven't missed a screw. I'm sure if I have someone in the comments will be screaming out at me. Thank you very much. So these cables, these first 2, just slide back in. This one, black flap, lifted it up, pop the cable under the black flap, push it in that way, and then just push the black flap back down again. And this one as well just pushes in like so. Don't forget your aerial cable. Just work it back through from where you removed it. Try to pop it underneath the label to keep it nice and tidy as well. And then pop on the connector to the motherboard. Like so, it just pops on. Come with a cloth and just remove the black marks that you added earlier, just because it's nice, keeps it nice and tidy then. Another quick scan for any screws that I've missed. Don't think I've missed any. It's just that one there, which is fine because, oh no, I have missed one, spotted it just here. There you go, I always miss one. This one here next to that is fine though, because as I say, the power supply needs to go in, which is what we'll do now. So we flip it over. Let's give this a good dust off here. Obviously got our power lead, which we fed through earlier. So just leave that to the side for a minute. Aerial cable again, let's just feed that through and then pop it back on to the connector. Here, where these connect, let's just zoom you in, it's really easy to tell. The black cable goes to the connector with B on it. The grey cable, which runs to the back, goes to the connector with the letter G next to it. It can be a bit fiddly, so you can grab yourself a pair of tweezers, hover the connector over, and then just snap it in position. Same with the grey one, hover it over and just try to snap it into position. Like so. Now with the power cable, what we do, we'll just feed it back through the little clips that are here to keep it nice and tidy and out of the way, like so. Grab our power supply, and it's always worth giving this a bit of a dust as well with your air duster. So in we come with the power supply. Got the little connector there, which connects to the power cable here. So I'll line it up. And then it's quite hard to show you on camera, and then just snap it in, push it into position. Spin your power supply around, making sure it's aligned and ready to go. You don't push it down yet though, because what you need to do is get this cable fed through this little cable run here, like so. Give it a bit of a wiggle, and then finally push it down, like so. And then we can add all of our screws again. And then when you're connecting the aerial at the back, there's a little clip which needs to go over the power supply, and then add your screw into that there. so. And then we need to add in the RF shield that's got the screws in it still. Drop it down. They are the Torx type screws. One and two. And then we have one screw left, which is the screw which can now be placed back in here now the power supply is in position. Like so. Now all that's left to do is to get the casings back on. So obviously really important, clean the casing as well. Making sure the majority of the dust is removed because you don't want that dust going back in your fan. Okay, now I start with the bottom piece of the casing, just a bit with the lip. Take the PS4 this way around. You're going to go inwards like so. So we're just going to drop it into the lip of the case. We're going to give it a wiggle and it will pop, and then we can drop it down. We can then flip it around and then give it a squeeze, and back on it pops. Very similar with the top case. Again, make sure it's nice and clean, free of dust. Now this top one, hook the back over first of all, like so. Make sure it's nice and flush, and literally just push down on either corner the front, like so. Then it's back on. Finally, pop back in your hard drive. Goes in that way round, like so, and add this screw to hold the hard drive in position. Pop back on the little plastic bezel which covers the hard drive. Snap it in and then push it that way, and it will go. And then our final screw is for the casing. Our final black screw. Just peel back the warranty label again, and then pop your screw in. Like so, and then just put the warranty label over it again. All done. So thanks very much for watching. Just a real quick video on showing you how to service your PS4 Slim. You know, some people just remove the top casing and spray it with this spray air to try and clean the dust out. That will work for a little while, but it's not a real proper job, right? You do need to take it apart like you've seen in this video, especially get rid of all that line of horrible dust which is around the heatsink. That needs to come out, and that's to say that's 99% of the reasons why these PlayStations overheat. And also, as you saw, the runners within the optical drive, again, that is nearly 100% of the time while discs slip when they're going in or being ejected out. So thanks very much for your view, really appreciate it. Please consider giving us a thumbs up, it really does help us out. And please consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it really does help us out and inspires us to carry on making videos like this. We are posting videos weekly now on how to fix PlayStations, how to fix Xboxes, including the new Xbox Series models, as well as the PlayStation 5. So please subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when we post a new video. So as I say, thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate your view. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye for now.